Imagine that every relationship you have ever experienced, from the briefest encounter to the deepest connection, was never a coincidence. Every person who has entered your life, whether they brought joy or pain, reflected something that already existed within you. It is not fate, and it is not luck. It is your own psyche, drawing experiences that align with what you secretly believe you deserve. Carl Jung, the founder of analytical psychology, expressed this idea clearly. What remains unconscious will appear in your life as fate. This principle is especially true in relationships. If you repeatedly find yourself surrounded by people who overlook you, fail to appreciate you, or even hurt you, there is an important question to ask. How much do you truly value yourself? What you tolerate from others often mirrors what you believe you deserve. And what you believe you deserve is deeply connected to your self-esteem. From Jung's perspective, self-esteem is not simply confidence. It is closely tied to your relationship with your unconscious mind, your shadow, and the hidden beliefs that shape your life. Jung discovered that every person carries a shadow, a collection of rejected, suppressed, or forgotten parts of the self. The shadow is not only made of negative qualities, it also contains everything that was once ignored, criticized, or invalidated by the people around us. Over time, we learn to hide these parts out of fear of rejection. Yet the shadow never disappears. It reveals itself through our relationships. If, deep inside, you believe that you are unworthy of love, respect, or acceptance, you may unconsciously attract people who reinforce those beliefs. Not because life is punishing you, but because your mind has become accustomed to those patterns. Think about someone with strong self-worth and a clear sense of personal value. It is uncommon to see such a person remain trapped in destructive relationships for long. Those who genuinely respect themselves naturally reject situations that fall below their standards. They do not have to fight for respect or chase validation. People who are not aligned with their values simply drift away. Jung believed that many of our choices are guided by the unconscious rather than by logic. If you grew up believing that love had to be earned, you may now seek relationships where affection feels conditional. If love in your early years was mixed with pain or uncertainty, you may unconsciously associate love with struggle, sacrifice, or waiting. The good news is that these patterns can change. The path toward healthier relationships does not begin with changing other people. It begins with changing your relationship with yourself. Many toxic relationships persist because people have not confronted their own shadow. A fear of abandonment that remains unconscious may attract situations that trigger it. Feelings of inadequacy may lead someone to seek approval from those least willing to give it. Difficulty setting boundaries often results in attracting people who constantly cross them. The issue is not bad luck. The issue is an unconscious pattern repeating itself again and again. Jung taught that nothing can be transformed until it is first accepted. Judgment does not create freedom. Awareness and acceptance do. Instead of asking why others treat you a certain way, ask why you continue to accept it. Instead of blaming the people who enter your life, ask what hidden belief may have drawn them there. And instead of waiting for the world to change, focus on becoming the person who naturally attracts the relationships you truly desire. Self-esteem is more than an idea. It is an inner state that influences how you move through the world. When your self-worth grows, your presence changes. Not because you pretend to be stronger, but because you no longer depend on external approval to feel complete. As this transformation happens, people respond differently. Those who once ignored you notice your absence. Those who failed to value you sense a change they cannot explain. And the kinds of people you always hoped to meet begin to appear naturally, not because you forced them to stay, but because you have become unwilling to accept anything less than what you genuinely deserve. This is the mirror effect. The people around you often reveal what is happening within you. By understanding and transforming yourself, you begin to transform the relationships that shape your life. Carl Jung proposed a fundamental principle of analytical psychology. The people we attract do not simply choose us. They also reflect unconscious aspects of our own psyche. This phenomenon, known as the mirror effect, suggests that every person we interact with reveals something about ourselves. If you attract manipulative people, ask yourself, where in my life am I failing to set boundaries? If others constantly diminish you, reflect on how often you may be diminishing yourself without realizing it. If your relationships are repeatedly unstable, consider what part of you is still seeking uncertainty instead of stability. The challenge is that most people do not want to face their own reflection. They prefer to blame others, society, or bad luck. Yet the truth is that changing your external world without transforming your inner world is impossible. The only way to attract healthier, more balanced, and fulfilling relationships is to change the image you project from within. This leads to a concept that few truly understand, but that is essential in shaping how others perceive you: the power of self-image. Your mind believes you before anyone else does. Jung argued that the human psyche builds an identity around what we believe about ourselves, and that self-image is expressed through body language, communication, and self-expression. What is most remarkable is that people often respond not to who you truly are, but to the image you unconsciously project. If you see yourself as someone unworthy of love, you will behave in ways that reinforce that belief. If you believe you must please others to be accepted, you will attract people who value you only when you give in. If you secretly feel inadequate, you may seek relationships that confirm that feeling of lack. What makes this even more powerful is that no matter how much confidence you try to fake, others often sense your deeper emotional state and respond accordingly. This is why, when someone genuinely works on their self-worth, the attitudes of people around them begin to change, not because others have changed, but because that person has changed from within. True transformation does not come from empty affirmations or forced positivity. It comes from healing the root of the problem, embracing the parts of yourself you once rejected, and becoming whole. As you change, your relationships begin to reorganize themselves. One of Jung's most profound observations was that when an individual transforms, their entire relational system must adapt. Some people will no longer fit into your life and will drift away. Others will resist your growth and try to pull you back into old patterns. And some, who resonate with your new way of being, will naturally enter your life. This is why many people lose friendships or end relationships when they begin building genuine self-esteem. It is not a punishment or a negative consequence. It is evidence of growth. Jung expressed this idea beautifully. What you resist controls you, but what you accept transforms you. When you begin to accept yourself, value yourself, and stop depending on external validation, the people who are connected only to your fragmented version gradually disappear. What remains is far more meaningful. Relationships built on mutual recognition, authentic connection, and genuine respect. This brings us to an important question. If every relationship in your life were a perfect reflection of your self-esteem, what would it reveal about you today? For many people, the idea that self-worth shapes relationships still feels abstract. Yet there is an invisible psychological process constantly at work, quietly influencing who enters your life, who stays, and how every connection unfolds. Carl Jung observed that the human mind operates on three interconnected levels that constantly shape the reality we experience. The first is the conscious mind. This is the part of you that thinks logically, makes decisions, and defines what you believe you want. It is where you tell yourself, I want a healthy relationship, or I want to be surrounded by people who truly appreciate me. The second is the personal unconscious. This deeper layer stores past experiences, emotional wounds, fears, and beliefs that have accumulated throughout your life, often without your awareness. Hidden here are childhood patterns, unresolved pain, and emotional reactions that continue to influence your choices long after they were formed. The third is the collective unconscious, the deepest level of the psyche. According to Jung, this is where universal archetypes and inherited cultural patterns reside. It contains the shared psychological structures that shape humanity's understanding of love, power, success, and self-worth. What determines the people and experiences you attract is not your conscious desire alone, but the combined influence of all three levels. This is why you can genuinely want something different while still finding yourself repeating the same patterns. If your unconscious mind continues to carry feelings of rejection, abandonment, or unworthiness, you may unknowingly choose relationships that reinforce those beliefs. This leads to an important question. How can these patterns be changed? How can the mind be reoriented toward healthier relationships that reflect personal growth? Jung believed the answer lies in psychic integration. Real transformation begins when you stop dividing yourself into separate parts and start bringing them together into a more complete whole. Many people try to change their external circumstances without first addressing their inner world. They seek healthy relationships while avoiding their own shadow. They desire respect while accepting weak boundaries. They long for genuine love while secretly believing they do not deserve it. Jung famously suggested that whatever remains unconscious tends to appear in our lives as fate. Every recurring relationship can therefore reveal something about ourselves that still needs attention. If you repeatedly encounter people who hurt you, the deeper question is not simply why they behave that way, but why some part of you continues to accept it. If emotionally unavailable people keep appearing in your life, it may be worth asking what part of you is still afraid of true intimacy. Psychic integration begins when you stop resisting these lessons and start learning from them. As you recognize and transform these hidden patterns, your relationships begin to change. You no longer feel compelled to chase people. Emotional games lose their appeal. Relationships that drain your energy become easier to leave behind. The people who once seemed irresistible no longer attract you, while healthier and more compatible connections begin to emerge naturally. This is not magic. It is psychology at work. There is, however, one final principle that helps explain why everything seems to shift when your self-worth improves. It is the principle of resonance. In physics, resonance occurs when similar vibrations naturally synchronize with one another. Jung believed something similar happens within human psychology. As your inner beliefs, values, and sense of self change, the kinds of people and experiences you attract begin to align with that new internal state. Jung brought this idea into psychology by explaining that our beliefs, thoughts, and emotions generate an energetic frequency that interacts with the external world. This means that if you vibrate from a place of lack, you will attract relationships that reflect that lack. If you see yourself as someone without value, you will encounter people who reinforce that perception. If your energy is rooted in insecurity, you will attract situations and individuals that make you feel even more insecure. But here is the key. Resonance also works in the opposite direction. When you begin to see yourself with love and respect, the people who cannot reflect those qualities naturally fade from your life. When you genuinely believe you deserve meaningful connections, you start meeting people who share that same frequency. When you feel whole within yourself, you stop attracting relationships that drain you and begin attracting those that enrich your life. This helps explain why a person's life can change dramatically after working on self-esteem from the inside out. It is not luck, and it is not coincidence. It is simply the principle of resonance at work. Jung once said, "Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakens." And when you awaken, you realize something profound. It was never about other people. It was always about you. There is an uncomfortable truth many people struggle to accept. The world is not always the source of our obstacles. Sometimes we are the ones closing doors without realizing it. Jung studied a crucial aspect of the human psyche: unconscious self-sabotage. Why does someone who says they want love pull away when they receive it? Why does someone seeking stability repeatedly choose chaotic relationships? Why do people who most need self-worth often surround themselves with those who diminish them? The answer is not rational. It is unconscious. From childhood, the mind develops emotional comfort zones. Even when those patterns are painful, they feel familiar. Jung discovered that whenever a person attempts to break a deeply rooted emotional pattern, the mind often creates resistance. If you have lived with emotional deprivation, healthy love may feel uncomfortable. If you learned that affection must be earned through sacrifice, easy and genuine love may seem suspicious. If you believe your worth depends on being accepted, you may reject those who value you unconditionally. This happens because the unconscious is not concerned with what is best for you. It seeks what is familiar. As a result, a person may consciously desire healthy relationships while unconsciously sabotaging every opportunity to experience them. Jung referred to this as psychic resistance, and the only way to overcome it is to recognize its signals before they begin controlling your decisions. There is an even deeper force at work: the way the unconscious creates evidence to support its own beliefs. Jung explained that we do not see the world as it truly is. We see it through the lens of our minds. If you carry the belief that nobody values you, your mind will automatically filter experiences to confirm it. If 10 people treat you with respect and one ignores you, you may remember only the person who ignored you. If someone shows you affection but one small action creates doubt, your attention may focus entirely on the negative. If someone demonstrates genuine interest, you might even interpret it as manipulation. Why does this happen? Because the mind is designed to remain consistent with what it already believes. Jung expressed this idea powerfully. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. If you constantly feel rejected, ignored, or undervalued, the better question is not, "Why does this always happen to me?" but rather, "What belief within me is helping create this experience?" This does not mean forcing positive thoughts or pretending everything is fine. The goal is not to ignore reality, but to change the lens through which you interpret it. This is where the reprogramming of the unconscious becomes essential. Jung proposed a process for transforming unconscious beliefs and opening the door to new experiences. The first step is identifying the hidden emotional pattern. Ask yourself, what pattern keeps repeating in my relationships? If every relationship follows a similar, dynamic, emotional imbalance, lack of commitment, or one-sided effort, there is likely an unconscious belief sustaining it. This is not bad luck. It is a psychological pattern that must be recognized before it can be changed. The second step is emotionally separating yourself from the limiting belief. Once you identify the belief shaping your relationships, begin questioning it. If you have always believed that love means suffering, ask yourself, is this a universal truth or simply a story I learned? If you believe you must struggle to be valued, consider whether this belief is truly yours or something inherited from past experiences. As you challenge the foundations of these beliefs, their influence begins to weaken. The mind is flexible, and when you allow yourself to consider a new perspective, the unconscious starts reorganizing itself. The final step is the creation of a new psychological identity. This is where genuine transformation takes place. It is not enough to stop believing in an old story. You must replace it with a new inner identity that aligns with the life and relationships you truly want to create. Jung discovered that the human psyche adapts to the story we repeatedly tell ourselves about who we are. When you begin to see yourself as someone worthy of love without sacrifice, your mind naturally starts seeking relationships that reflect that belief. The moment you decide that self-respect is not an abstract idea but a basic requirement for your life, you will instinctively distance yourself from people who fail to honor it. Instead of constantly asking, "Will I be enough for this person?" imagine asking a different question. Is this person good for my peace of mind? That simple shift changes everything. Your inner world starts reorganizing itself, and the way you connect with others begins to transform. This is why some people completely change their relationships without forcing anything externally. It is not luck, and it is not magic. It is a new mindset expressing itself through everyday reality. As your inner beliefs evolve, your external experiences start to follow. This is where the cycle comes full circle. When you change, the people around you either grow with you or gradually fade from your life. They are not leaving because you are unworthy of love. They leave because they no longer fit the person you are becoming. Now the truth becomes clear. The relationships you attract are not random. They are often a reflection of what you believe you deserve. If you are unhappy with what you see in your connections, the first thing to examine is not the world around you, but the way you see yourself. Everything you tolerate, accept, or normalize in others is often connected to how you quietly treat yourself. Carl Jung left us with one of the most powerful lessons of all. The greatest task of a human being is not to change the world, but to transform themselves. When you change from within, the world you experience changes with you. So choose yourself. Choose growth. Choose the version of you that no longer settles for less than respect, peace, and genuine connection. Every step you take toward self-awareness is a step toward a more meaningful life. Trust the journey. Trust your transformation. And remember that the person you are becoming is already waiting for you on the other side of your fears. If this message resonated with you and you want to continue exploring Jung's profound insights and the hidden power of the unconscious mind, subscribe to our channel, Depth of Consciousness. Thank you for being here. And remember, your greatest transformation begins the moment you believe you deserve it. We'll see you in the next video.